Hey, what's up, guys? Tuki here, back again, and welcome to the return of Draft to Glory. Now, for those of you who missed what this series was in NHL 17, allow me to quickly explain. It's not the most complicated concept in the world. You start off by running a fantasy draft. You select the worst players possible, and then from there, you build your team solely through the draft. There is no trading for players. There is no signing free agents. You slowly have to build up your team through the draft, 7 picks at a time. It takes a while to eventually get a team that can find success. I'm not going to spoil what happened in that original series. It is probably the most popular series in the history of my channel. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you check it out. But the good thing is, you're in on the ground floor of the return. And of course, as you have been able to tell by the title and the thumbnail, we're putting a spin on it this time that has been talked about quite a bit. It's also, we've had kind of a test run on Twitch back towards the start of NHL 18, and it is time to finally go forward with this concept. We'll say it is Draft to Glory Goon Squad. Now, simply put, it's the same thing. We can only build through the draft. However, this time we are only allowed to draft certain types of players. Now, for goaltenders, of course, it's fair game. We can get whoever we want. For defensemen, it's defensive D-man and enforcers only. For forwards, we have a few more options: enforcer, grinder, power forward. Those will be the only types of players that we are allowed to draft in this series. So say, for example, there's a medium franchise level player that we could take with the first overall pick, but he's a sniper. Tough luck. There's nothing we can do about it. So there is that little bit extra of an added challenge, as if this series wasn't difficult enough. Like I said, the original Draft to Glory was probably the most popular series on my channel. I'm excited to finally be bringing it back. And for those asking, yes, Nations United will return later on this year with NHL 18. But for now, it is time for Draft to Glory to shine yet again. We are using the Anaheim Ducks solely because with Montreal and with Hartford, we were a team in the Central, and we were a team in the Atlantic. I had to choose between a Metro team and a Pacific team. We used Philly in the test runs because it made so much sense with it being a Goon Squad. I wanted to jump over and use Anaheim. We haven't used Anaheim yet, so let's do it. Let's take control of the Anaheim Ducks. Draft to Glory Goon Squad is officially underway. Now, as I mentioned, we will, of course, be starting off with the fantasy draft. It doesn't matter where we pick. We have the 16th selection. We're going to keep it that way. So the Colorado Avalanche are going to win out with the Connor McDavid sweepstakes. I will say this. As far as a custom roster on my part, and I meant to bring this up in the update video that I put out the other day. When I originally, year in, year out, you guys know if you've followed this channel for any period of time, I prefer to have as updated of rosters as I possibly can, as accurate of roster, and just of, information as I possibly can. And it's kind of at a obsessive level when it comes to making sure attributes are as close to accurate as possible, potentials as well, and just having the teams be set up properly. Of course, there are some prospects EA can't add to the games because they don't have the rights to do so, particularly if they're in the NCAA. The problem is this year, I have not had the ability to do that, as you get a look at who has been selected so far. With NHL 17, I had all the extra time in the world to be able to edit the rosters on my own. This year, though, with the addition of Twitch, I haven't had the time to do so. So the only way I'd really be able to do that is if I were to either stop streaming or stream to myself updating these rosters, which is probably the most boring thing I could do. So as far as using updated rosters, I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year, and I know that's going to disappoint some of you because you've been looking forward to that video. But it's at the point where it's like, unless that was my actual job, I don't think I could do it. Which, by the way, EA, I'm just saying, it could be my job. I'm kidding. Stop. But you get the point. I just haven't had that extra time this year to update everything. So we are using the December 21st EA roster update with this series. So keep that in mind. And if I have any, sort of update for you, in terms of whether or not I eventually update the rosters. There will be a video about it, I promise you. Now, as far as taking the worst players possible, our first selection here is a defensive D-man. He's not much of a goon, though. I don't know. It's like, because as far as enforcers, it's going to be tough. You know what, actually? Let's go with the physical category. Let's go with the physical category. No, we're not taking Milan Lucic. Tom Sestito is probably a bit too good. I got to admit, Tom Sestito is a little bit better than the average player we would typically get, as you can tell by how I had it sorted before. These are the type of players that we would have taken and that we did take with the original Draft to Glory. So we may end up taking someone like Tom Sestito, but I want to look for someone who is even worse. So let's go ahead. Do we have anybody like below a 65? We do have a couple of 68s. We have a 66 in Zach Stortini, Luke Gazdick as well. You know what? I think 68 overall is going to be all right. So let's start off. Our first selection is Tom Sestito, which I'm sure is going to make a lot of people happy. What a popular player Tom Sestito is. Selected right after Vladimir Tarasenko, or right where he belongs. As far as goaltenders go, and actually, you know what? Let's get that out of the way now, because the players we're going to be taking, we don't have to worry about them being selected. As far as goaltenders go, we are going to just select the worst ones possible. As far as why I'm sorting this out by potential instead of the lowest overall, is some of these players have the ability, like Jordan Hallett here, to still develop into a decent player. If you sort by potential and then still take someone who's a 60 overall, like this guy here, I think it's Brian Pitton. It is Brian Pitton. He's not going to develop at all. So he's just and no disrespect to Brian Pitton, he is just the kind of scrub that we are looking for to take up a roster spot. Put it this way, if you make it into an EA NHL game, you are a good enough hockey player. I mean, you are an elite level hockey player. Even if you're an ECHL player, you're still a tremendous hockey player. So, actually, as a matter of fact, though, Peters and Racine are both 26. We can take both of them. I'm not going to keep going on that side rant. You get it. People who are in this game are good hockey players. Even if you are a 50 overall, you're still a fairly good player. But anyway, I figured I'd add webcam or the face cam to this video just to make it a little bit more interesting. I guess that was the one thing the first time we went through the Goon Squad. Or not the Goon Squad, but the first time we went through Draft to Glory, or particularly with the St. Louis fantasy draft we had last year, is, boy, did that become a bit of a challenge to make it through. A lot of you did, though. A lot of you did, but you get the point. So let's keep selecting goalies here. Actually, that would be our last one. We're at 4 out of 4. Wonderful. Let's start selecting some more goons then, shall we? Let's see who we have next. I hope you guys are excited for this series, by the way. Obviously now, if anything, I'm happy, as we're going to take Anthony Peluso here. If anything, I'm happy that I can finally say, like, oh, when's Draft to Glory coming back? Right now. It's here. We have arrived. And like I mentioned, Nations United will return later this year as well. But for now, I am intrigued as to whether or not we can actually make this work. Like I said, I'm not going to throw out any spoilers there as far as what happened with Draft to Glory, because really, you know, I think if you haven't seen it, you would enjoy it. As we get Zach Stortini, it's a shame he shaved his beard. He used to look like a full-on caveman, but still, he's going to be a solid player for us, I would imagine. I'm intrigued to see whether or not we're going to have any luck with the draft, especially now. Obviously, NHL 18, the draft has been a little bit boosted up to begin with the the higher overalls, the more NHL ready players at the top of the draft. That's been a factor. But as of late, it is unconfirmed. But as of late, I've been getting a lot of tweets about, hey, I just found this guy with the 11th overall pick, and he was an 86 overall. A lot of crazy things have been happening with the draft in franchise mode over the past few weeks. So now is probably the best time to start this series and to see if we can get lucky. But again, the odds that we find an enforcer who can help make a difference on this team, probably pretty slim, as we're going to take Eric Bolton here. He is probably going to be our first captain. Grinder, we might be able to find some success. We had some grinders in the original Draft to Glory that ended up being pretty good for us. power forward and defensive D-man. Those are going to be the two crucial player types in which we can build this team. As far as whether or not we find any success, I was skeptical with the original Draft to Glory. I'm even more skeptical now. I think this is going to be a fairly difficult challenge to find success with. I want to draft, or I don't want to draft players with that high of an overall. There we go. Jamie Devane and David Brohl, former Maple Leafs. It's a good way to start. If only Colton Orr and Fraser McLaren were still in, then I would be happy. As far as taking a look at all the teams, too, because whenever there's a fantasy draft, I know you guys, or at least some of you guys, like to see what players went where and who your favorite team selected. At the end of the video, we'll go through each team. This video is just going to be the intro video there as we go through the draft and get everything set up. As far as the format of this series, originally, what we would do is we'd go through a whole year. On average, these videos would be about an hour long. I'm still thinking that's going to be the same thing, especially early on in the series where we are going to lose a lot. And the main drama is whether or not we lose the lottery and miss out on the number 1 overall pick, which will probably happen a lot because this game hates me. We finally get a defenseman here with Stu Bickle. I think I am going to have to take Andrew McWilliam there as well, but that's okay. So the average overall of this team will be a little bit higher. If we win more than 5 games, I'd be shocked. If we win more than 10 games, that would be a miracle. But we'll see how the team does. It would be nice to get an Alexiak or Ryan Reeves. He's worth the first round pick, don't you know? That would be nice, but I think we're going to pass for now. Where the hell's McWilliam? There he is. I'm going to pass on him for now. There we go. 61 overall PL3. Pierre-Luc Letourneau Leblanc. That is the type of goon that is going to make a difference on this team. That is a big-time pickup for the club. Oh, boy. And already, as we're not even halfway through this, I'm like, oh, yep, here we go. This is a fantasy draft, all right. You hit the wall at some point. It's just a matter of when. And we have hit that point at this stage, but that's okay. Rich Clune, a big Toronto theme here. Past and present Marlies, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I gotta admit, like I said, I'm excited to see what you guys think of the return of this series, and I will say there have been a couple of you lately, particularly on Twitch, that have been guessing what the series was going to be. In particular, Z-Pops, you hit the nail on the head. Earlier tonight, I was streaming, and I talked about how after this series started, I was going to look at bringing franchise mode, back to Twitch. I mean, when NHL 18 first came out, that is all I was streaming. Every night was basically a new franchise mode with a new concept, and I nearly burned myself out on franchise mode to begin with. I'll take Buddy Robinson, that's fine. So I took a little bit of a break away from that, and like I mentioned, that was around the time where we had tested out the concept of the Goon Squad. And once I mentioned that I was thinking of bringing it back, people started guessing, and correctly guessing, what the series would be. So I had to be like, oh, well, I said I'm bringing it back. I didn't say I'm bringing it back tonight. But it was just kind of funny how people still wanted this series, apparently. And that's the thing, too. I knew with Draft to Glory when we started it, much like with the Nations United series, that we would have the chance to bring this series back, with different concepts. The original Nations United series is, there we go, Tony Turgeon. The original Nations United series, I'm going to actually start looking for defensemen, was, the concept was, we take players, we build a team out of players who aren't a part of like the major hockey powers. Of course, the US, Canada, Russia, Sweden, Finland. I think we even avoided Slovakia and the Czech Republic. And since then, of course, we've had the Sweden series where Nations United is now, okay, we build up a team, but we can only build it up with players from a certain nation. And that's going to continue. That's still going to be the theme when that series starts, which I don't know when that'll be. But it'll happen at some point. But case in point, now this series is in a very similar spot, where in the future, yeah, we're going to continue along with the kind of theme. The theme of this one's Goon Squad. In the future, we could have it be players of a certain height and stature. We could have it be Snipers United, or like, Playmakers United, whatever. That's kind of how I like to set up my series, where we can come back to it. We have that established concept, and then we just put a twist on it. And that is what we're doing here. And I hope, like I said, man, I hope you guys end up enjoying this video, as I am struggling to find the player here. Dalton Smith. I don't like that he doesn't have exact potential yet. That's why I'm avoiding him for now. Same with Harrison Ruop. Is there anybody else here? Johnston, his potential's bad enough. Ross Johnston, I think he's been with Bridgeport for most of his career. Let's sign him up. I meant to be looking for defensemen, but what are you going to do? We're still going to be here for a while. Don't know if you noticed. We're only on our 19th selection out of 32. It's going to take us a little bit to get through this. So let's keep looking for defensemen here. Oh, physical category. Who do we have? I could take Chris Breen, but I feel like a 70 overall is a little bit... It's cheating a little bit. When the majority of the original series, in the early stages, it was 60 overall guys. So Sonoff, 19 years old. Too good. Who else do we have here? Who else? Lentuniemi. Oh, don't want to risk it with Tommy Hughes either. Matthew Brodeur just barely makes the cut. We'll take him. Former draft pick of the Phoenix Coyotes. I do like that this game keeps that... even though the Arizona Coyotes now, it still leaves it in there that they were Phoenix. It's good to know. Am I struggling to carry on here? A little bit, admittedly. This is being recorded after a stream, like I mentioned. I already recorded some other stuff earlier tonight, and now it's like, okay, how do we make this interesting as we look for the worst players possible? And I'm finding it to be a tad bit difficult. Who else do we have here? That kind of fits the bill. A couple of 68s, but again, they weren't quite what we were looking for. 64 overall, low AHL top 2. I could probably take that player and not have to worry about it. Oh, we are struggling at this point to find bad enough players. There we go. Max Nicastro. 85 checking, 80 fighting skill. Boy, do you think we're going to lead the league in penalty minutes? Do you think that's going to happen? Pretty sure that's a safe bet. Pretty sure. Not entirely sure. Wow, what's the delay here? If this crashes on me right about now, oh my, will I be the saltiest person in the history of people. There we go, we're good. We're good, never mind. No need to be alarmed. Well, there might be, I don't know. I mean, for some of you, who knows, there might be reason to be alarmed while you're watching this. I don't know what you're doing. I don't want to know what you're doing. Or do I? No, I don't. Anyway, we will just continue on rambling to pass the time as we continue to find the worst players possible. Let's see, 67 overall at 23. I'm looking for someone a little bit worse. 66 overall at 21. We have a 68. Where's like the 62 overall players? That's what I'm looking for. I want the worst possible goons that we can get, but to be honest, actually it might have to be this guy. Wachow! He's clearly a fan of certain animated films. Eddie Wachow. Florida Panthers draft pick, 2011. Who knew? Who knew? Not even good enough to get a picture, but then again, neither is Charlie McAvoy, apparently. Damn shame. I was disappointed. When I saw it, they still didn't have pictures in for certain prospects. It's such a minor thing, but a little detail like that, it can go a long way. Who wants to look at just the black silhouette there? It's boring. It is boring. Which hopefully this is... I'm struggling, man. I'm struggling. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to mention. I suppose I could just skip through to the end of this. But whenever I skip through, people say they miss the rambling. So it's an imperfect... I mean, I was going to say an imperfect science. It's just not a great situation to find myself in. Oleg Yavenko, though. He was in Bruins training camp at one point. Star of Behind the Bee, like the original series, where they were teaching him how to box He wasn't good. But still, at 6'7", who's going to tell him that he's terrible at boxing? Someone who's 6'8", or who's actually a competent boxer, I suppose. Maybe. You know what? Let's just take Chris Breen. Let's start taking 70 overall guys, because we're having to scroll pretty far down, and of course, the further down we have to scroll, the less goonish that they are. Would it be goonish or the less goon-like? Goonly, even? Let me know down in the comments below. How would you describe it? I'm sure there's a very, very fitting word right now that is just not coming to mind, but that is okay. Again, we can't take Sasunov. Harrison Roap, though. I have a feeling he might get a little bit too good, but we're still going to take him. I don't think it's really going to matter. A couple of overall points here and there. We're still going to be awful. It's not like we're going to be making the playoffs with this team. We're still going to need to rely on these draft picks to make this happen. It's just a matter of whether or not, like I said, we actually get those players who can, actually help us find success. Oh, boy. And the worst part is we don't even have a Nolan Patrick. We don't even have a Nolan Patrick to draft. He was the face of Draft to Glory last time out, and he is not available to us this time. And that makes me sad, but that's fine. That leaves the door open for someone new to make their way to our Hall of Fame, which is still a weird thing to have. But again, it is a kind of a perfect way to cap off the series. Duncan Siemens. Again, okay. Right, I know. But, man, could you not have gotten a second take with the picture? I don't get what's going on up here, what's going on up here? Not the hairline, right? I mean, I'm not talking shit. But, did he, just take off the helmet? And then it's like, hey, Duncan, we need a picture. He's like, oh, okay. What the hell? Were you wearing a headband? Were you going through a LeBron phase? He's over it. You should be too. Good thing is we have all of our defensemen drafted. We are in the 27th round. We are almost there. We have almost made it through this. Holy hell, if you guys are still with me at this point in time. I don't get it. I don't get why people watch what I do to begin with, and I say that all the time because it's still just ridiculous to me. But for a series like this in particular, we are absolutely drafting Tanner Glass. Of course we are. 70 overall, he might have to be our captain. That might be the guy. Although, I was thinking, maybe we should only have alternates. Whoever our first draft pick ends up being, they should probably be the captain of this team. We're going to take Jared Boll next. I know he's a 71, but like I said, whatever. Just to make this a bit more quick. And that way we actually get Goon-style players. Peter Cehlarik selected by Nashville, the pick before. And to cap it off, we'll take Jaromir Jagr. I'm just joking. We totally should, but we won't. So who else do we have here? Still looking for a 71. 72 Bolig. You know what? I think that's all right. Let's go for Brandon Bolig. 72 overall. The highest overall on this team. I don't know why I was concerned about taking players. Anyone under a 75, really, should have been fair game. The only reason they're as good as they are is because they can check. I mean, if our main point getter has over 20 in total, I would be pleasantly surprised. Jean-Francois Jacques. That is that not the most French name in the history of the NHL? It definitely isn't. There have been some good ones, I would know, through playing FHM as of late. But damn, that's a good one. We have 2 picks left. We have almost made it through this. I know we don't have any centers. And that's fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. We'll be fine. We've taken nothing but left wings. We can play people out of position. No problem. Who is next? We're talking Bill Goldberg style. Who's next? Eric Tangradi. Perfect. And Mike Blunden might be our final pick unless I can find somebody better. This team is going to be incredible. I've been downplaying it this whole time that we aren't going to find success. We got this in the bag. Stanley Cup year 1. It's not even going to have to be a series. It's not even going to have to be a series. We are good to go. Our final pick. Let's just go with this guy. Mackenzie Stewart. Should you not have an I between the Z and the E? Mackenzie Stewart. That's not Mackenzie. It's Mackenzie. Mackenzie. I mean, I guess if you want to put that much of an accent on it. He doesn't look too happy. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna start picking apart his name. Let's just draft him with our final selection in this fantasy draft. Now, of course, whenever you do a fantasy draft, the AHL team gets filled up by the game itself. So that's a thing. Here is our final team. Quickly, I'm going to show you Arizona. Pietrangelo, Murray, Tkachuk, right? They also took Nolan Patrick. I'm going to show you Boston. You can pause on your own time if you want to see who went where, who went to your favorite team. I have to do it this way. Otherwise, it would take way too long, even just to sit here and list off like the top 3 picks that each team made. Let's be honest, this video is approaching a half an hour anyway. Although Dallas taking Marchand and Rask back-to-back is a job well done on their part. So let's just go ahead. We'll look through all these teams. You can pause the video at any time, and that way you can see who went where. Although Sagan and McAvoy being on the same team hurts. Like my soul is it is on fire. That's not good. That is not good. Jonathan Taves on the Sens. Best of luck with that. Pasternak's a Penguin. That's a scary thought. Bobrovsky and Sergachev in St. Louis. That is a very strong start for that franchise. Kucherov, Ekblad to Vancouver. Carlson, Quick, Ellerstrom, and Perry, the top 5 picks for the Vegas Golden Knights. They also got Johnny Boychuk, so congratulations to them. And Werenski was the first pick for the Caps. Kopitar, Barkov, and Huberdeau to the Winnipeg Jets. Let's take a look at how this team is going to shape up for our first season. The next episode will be simming through that season and going through our first draft. As far as the scouting goes too, we're also going to look at whatever regions potentially have a power forward or defensive D-man in the top 10. So let's go ahead and go to roster moves. We're listed as a rebuilder, surprise, surprise. And let's see what this team's going to look like. Am I going to even be allowed to make any moves? I don't think I'm going to be allowed to make any moves because, again, we have nothing but cap space. So I think the team is basically locked in. It is. We can't even call up Bolig. Our team is locked in. I do not have the freedom to call up or send anyone down unless I sign a free agent. However, unlike last year, if a player wants a 2-way deal, I can't just change that to a 1-way and offer them $15 million. It resets. So I don't believe there is anybody that, fits the bill for what we're doing here that we would be able to sign to a large enough deal to actually give us the freedom to edit this team. The only guy we could potentially sign is Luke Schenn, and he's too good. He is way too good. But I do suppose I could leave that decision up to you guys. It's not going to make a difference. But, like I said, I'm looking at the dollar amount here. Luke Schenn, Alexei Emelin, Chris Stewart are guys that could sign deals like that. Cal Clutterbuck, Chris Kunitz, Dustin Brown. All right, we're starting to get less away from Goon Squad territory. So we could go out and sign one guy, sign him to a $15 million contract, and then that way we get the freedom to call up or send somebody down. It wouldn't make too much of a difference, but in a way, I'm kind of excited by how this team is set up. The top line would be Rich Clune, David Brohl, and Anthony Peluso. Sestito, Buddy Robinson, Jamie Devane, Eric Bolton, Zach Stortini, Luke Gazdick, Tony Turgeon, Ross Johnston, and PL3. What a team. Glorious, glorious setup to this team. Chris Breen and Andrew McWilliam, Matthew Brodeur with Stu Bickle, Oleg Yavenko is with Eddie Wachow. And of course the goaltenders are Pitton and Peters. We are going to win the President's Trophy. We are going to win the Cup. And then as you get a look at the AHL, as I mentioned, there will be some players here that we didn't draft. Although it did sign an enforcer for us, so that's nice of the game. There's a couple of other players as well that we didn't sign, but there's nothing that we can do about that. So let me know what you think as to whether or not we should sign like Cal Clutterbuck or one other Goon-style player. just to be able to do what we want with the roster. The last thing we have to check is the scouting meant to go to view draft class. Wouldn't be a video of mine without me going to the wrong part of the menu. View draft class. Who can we set our sights on for this first draft? Let's find out. So in the top 5, nobody. Where is the first player that we could go after? That is my question. Again, if we were to do this by like size, like, oh, Svechnikov is 6'3", we want to make sure, like, yeah, there will be some two ways that end up having great checking. That just kind of complicates things. That's why I am going with just the certain player types to keep it simple. And Ryan McLeod is going to be the first guy that we can kind of target. You could argue he doesn't really fit, the Goon type of stature at 6'1", 185. That was the question. It's a little bit of a pain to sit here and be like, oh, we can only draft players like over 6'4", 6'5", or we go for these certain player types. I actually do want your opinion on that, because if we don't go for McLeod, the first guy we'd be able to target is Will Krishnierik. Right, which I am sure you're looking forward to hearing me butcher that name for the next 30 episodes. You might be. I don't know. But let me know. Should we just go off of player type, or do we go off of height and weight, or both? So, for example, McLeod fits the bill with the player type, but he doesn't have the height and weight to kind of back up the kind of Goon stereotype, where Will Krishnierik absolutely does. And, of course, for goalies, we have the ability to take anybody that we want. I'm looking for other players here that would kind of fit the bill. Tyler Popovich, 6'4". I'd say he kind of fits that style. Matthias Svoboda, power forward, but is he a big enough player? 6'2", 213. Is he enough of a Goon? For defensive D-man, Yano Coyne would probably be the first target. But again, if we go off of the height and weight requirement as well, he would not be a fit. But you get the point. It's going to be slim pickings regardless here of who we end up going after. And actually, let's take a look. Do we have any legitimate Goons to target in this first draft? And pretty much, once we do that, that'll be it. So again, let me know as far as whether or not we're signing a player and whether or not we want to have that kind of height and weight requirements, rather than just specifically the player type. I don't think we're going to find any Goons. This is taking... Hey, never mind. So we got 3. Kevin Balls listed as an enforcer. Damn. That'd be a good player to go after. We also got Jack Alcock, which is tremendous, and Dalton Galley. 6'5", 232 pounds. Kevin Ball and Dalton Galley as our first defensive pairing sounds like just the dream start to this series, doesn't it? And there's one forward enforcer. It's Reginald Chung, 6'5", 217. Well, I think if we get to the draft, we have to at least try to get as many enforcers as we can, and there are a couple of them. I will set the scouting at the beginning of the next episode once we kind of decide for sure what we want to do. For now, guys, that'll do it for this one. I hope you did enjoy this first episode. It is Draft to Glory Goon Squad. I am excited to be bringing this series back, and again, I do hope that you feel the same way. If you did, you know what you can do to support the video and the channel. Links are in the description to my Twitter and Twitch. I recommend giving me a follow on both. Twitter for updates, Twitch because I stream pretty much every night, a little bit later, Eastern time, but still, you can follow me on Twitter for updates as to when I'm going to be streaming. It all works out. Have a good one. Take it easy. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.